I think telling stories are important because they give substance and meaning and heart and soul to simple facts and historical data. I spoke to my neighbor Claire, who was born in 1955 and grew up during the height of the civil unrest and Vietnam War protests, and she was in high school right before Roe v. Wade was passed. Roe v. Wade was passed in January 1973, and the year before that, when Claire was 18, she had a pivotal experience when a friend of hers became pregnant and asked for Claire's help in order to get an abortion. As you were telling me last time about your friend in high school that had asked you for your help with an abortion.
Yeah.
And I'm curious a little bit to know about like what her family environment was. And you had mentioned last time the struggle kind of both morally and fiscally you had, but you did end up helping her, kind of what that was like. And then also, if you wouldn't mind, like her story after. Did she recover okay? Were there any complications? Anything that you remember that you'd like to share?
Okay. Well, let's see. I do remember my friend who asked me if I could help her cover the cost of her abortion, which at the time was $30, which seems like nothing, but in the 70s it was. And I was working, and I don't think she was, and we were both in high school. And yeah, I did struggle with it internally because I didn't think abortion was okay. I thought it was wrong, and at the same time I knew what her predicament is, and what it was is she was the oldest of something like 7 kids in a very, very Catholic family. And back then, Catholics don't have sex until after they're married.
Probably still the same.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But I mean, it was more like it didn't happen rather than
That you did it.
right. I mean, no, yeah. It was more that I guess, it just was unheard of, I guess. And whether or not I don't think at that time I was following those rules either. But I knew it would have been really impactful for her and her family, and if she'd carried the baby. But at any rate, then I struggled with, should I help her with the money? Because even though I don't believe in abortion, but I decided to anyway because she was a good friend.
History tells us the stories of those who have been loud enough or strong enough or even bad enough to get noticed. But history leaves in the shadows the ordinary acts and questions that normal people wrestle with every day. This is why I chose to tell Claire's story. She lived in a cultural and religious context in which premarital sex and pregnancy were incredibly shameful and stigmatized. Birth control was legalized in 1965, but it was considered intrinsically evil by the Catholic Church. Claire later went on to contrast the story of her friend with her younger sister, who became pregnant after living with her boyfriend at age 18. Her sister was sent by her father to a Catholic charity to have her baby, and the whole process was hushed and shrouded in secrecy. Claire's sis wanted to have her mom keep and raise her baby, but her father forbade it. In this culture and in this context, both her sister and her mother's right to choose were taken away by Claire's father and his authority. And then again, Claire was asked to choose between what she thought was morally right and her love for her friend. Choices. What this tells me is that history is written by people who fulfill a society's cultural expectations the best they can, but always holding some sort of tension. And when that tension becomes great enough, it demands an entire society change. Thank you. And those changes lead to revolutions and upheavals and moments of quiet resistance. Those are the things that make history so beautiful.